Okay. Unmanned aerial vehicles. Is that the same as a drone?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Go over here.
What's that? Oh, yeah.
Bring one to demonstrate.
I thought about it. Yeah, so we just wanted to give you just a brief overview of our committee, unmanned aircraft, and basically what that is it's either a multi-rotor drone or a fixed wing. And so basically our task force came together last September. We all, under Chris Tymonson is on the state task force, and so we have a department one that was set up. Next slide here. So pretty much everyone had a representation as far as in the agency. Those that are here, Tymonson, myself, Vince Wunderlich, Rich Soltice with Wildlife, and Susan Steffens with Fisheries. We're all going to be given part of this presentation. And I think Kent Barrett is also here. And he was on the education side of things. But yeah, so we all came together. We all put our ideas together. Mainly we came for two primary purposes. The one purpose is to set aside some guidelines with using this new technology in the agency. And so what we did is we looked at the FFA's best practices, but we also gathered other agencies, other departments from across Kansas and across the country, put those together, and we got those set up right now. We're also in the modifying them as we learn more information as well. Second part of our task force was basically how we're going to use these drones in each of our divisions. And all I can say to that is it's pretty fascinating. The more I learn about them, the more we can do with them. Talk to other different agencies across the state and their uses of using them after having our UAS training. And it's the potential and the opportunity is just incredible on what we can do with them. So primarily with my division, search and rescue is going to be probably the paramount reason for using the drones. Also with hunt and accident reconstruction, putting those incidences together. As far as with fisheries and wildlife, ecological services, getting the research, doing the surveys, vegetation surveys, wildlife surveys. I think Rich is going to talk a little bit more about that. Marketing and promotional is just incredible there. Just the cinematography that these technology has, the 4K, the 5K video is great, and it's just a whole new perspective than what you can have just with using a camera on the ground. And then, of course, with engineering, checking structures, facilities, and just make sure everything is safe and secure.
Thank you, Vince. The portion of the presentation I'll be talking about is the training that we attended. You're looking at the inaugural class of KDWPT drone pilots. 30 of us went to training in late May, and the last group went through first week of June. There were two different parts of training. The first part involved sitting in the classroom for a few days with some pretty intense curriculum. This is something that I think a lot of people underestimate. Oh, just flying a drone, it's just a toy. It's really not. We had to learn very much some of the same rules and regulations that manned aircraft are held to as well. So in the picture in the upper left, Travis is our instructor there. He's the flight ops manager. I forgot to mention we got our training at K-State Polytech, one of the best countries in the school, number 2 for certifying and training drone pilots. Travis is a flight manager instructor at K-State Polytech, and what's up on the screen right there in the picture of us looking at was a sectional. We had to learn how to read airspace, because when you're flying a drone, you have to make sure that you are not going to be breaking the law or interfering with airspace where manned aircraft may be passing through as well. In the lower right-hand corner, you can see the pretty intense looks on our faces. The instructor in that case is Tim, and he's an aeronautical engineer. The instructors at K-State Polytech were wonderful. They were young, they were high-tech and on top of the latest technology, and just wonderful to work with. I'm not that old, but I've been out of school long enough that during this time, we had to go back to our hotel rooms and actually study at night. It was pretty difficult material. We also got some on-hands training. We got to fly some of these drones. That picture in the upper left is the training facility. It is about the size of a football field. It's just this giant net enclosure so that we don't have any drones that us inexperienced pilots get out in front of us and get lost. And in the lower right-hand corner, we were trained on this drone. I think the model is a DJI S1000, one of the multi-rotors. And they actually recommended training us on one of the more harder models to initially learn because there's so much going on. There's so much with controls, with yaw, banking. And I asked why, because this is much more difficult than I originally thought. They even turned off GPS, so we had to learn how to practice landing the drone when you didn't have the aid of the GPS to kind of keep it within a few meters. And they said that, when people pick up just one of those Phantoms or Inspires, more of the just straight out of the box, easy to fly drones, that it gives people almost this false sense of security. So it was very humbling to learn on about a $10,000 piece of equipment initially. And that's Spencer on the left with the sunglasses on without the hat. He was one of the experts on equipment at K-State Polytech. And here's just some photos of us getting some instruction and flying the drones in that football field enclosure. Law enforcement was able to we sent 12 people from law enforcement to take specialized flight training due to the nature of their job, obviously the search and recovery and rescue and accident reconstruction. They needed a little bit more of training than those of us who just took the basic. So they were taken out and they did some night operation flights. They also had these PVC tree structures with buckets attached and there were letters inside. So the law enforcement guys had to learn how to maneuver the drone and navigate the camera so that they could point and see what letter was inside the bucket. So a little bit more fine-tuned maneuvers. We also got to take a quick tour of the K-State Polytech Applied Aviation Research Center. They also have quite an array of drones set up, and the picture in the lower right-hand corner shows you one of their fixed-wing aircraft. Their whole lab was just amazing, and I can't even fathom how much money is being spent on there, but it was great to learn from a group of engineers and scientists who they love their job and they enjoy taking these things apart and modifying them, and it was kind of an eye-opening experience. I will say this is probably the most fun and hard training that I've ever had working for the agency in my 9 years with the agency. It was pretty cool. It's really neat to go tell people that I'm a certified pilot. Well, remote pilot and command certificate. All 30 of us had to go and take a test at the facility, at K-State's facility, to get our remote pilot and command certificate. This is the temporary certificate, my temporary certificate there on the right, and hopefully within the next 2 months I will receive an actual, almost like a driver's license certificate in the mail. But it was pretty hard. We had to pass the test, and you actually don't have to have any flight training to get this certificate, but the agency thought it was important for us to get hands-on experience as well, flying the drones. Also, you may have noticed several of these slides on the presentation have some pretty neat pictures. We do have a little bit of drone work already going on in the agency, and so those pictures are taken from various projects. We have a pilot project going on right now at Cedar Bluff Reservoir. What we're doing in the Fisheries Division is we are doing a comparison of two different ways of counting anglers. So we get an estimate of usage or pressure on a lake by counting boat and shoreline anglers. We typically hire a creel clerk or a technician to go around and physically count people, drive around and count. What we're doing also is taking counts using a drone, and we're going to make comparisons and see if they fall within confidence intervals and see if our estimates are precise enough, and just look at the cost effectiveness of one mode versus another. And this is in cooperation with Dr. Stark at Fort Hays State University. His two graduate students are doing that study, Jared Englebright and Caleb Stark. That has been going on since late May, and they have a few more flights to complete, probably about early to mid-July. Those findings will be presented at the Kansas Natural Resource Conference next winter. This is a video, so let me see if I can be successful and play this for you. This one, when I practiced it, was tilting it. So the guys are actually launching the drone from a boat, and they found it was easier to do it that way because you still have to maintain visual line of sight when you are flying the drone. So you have a person driving the boat, and then you have the pilot who launches the drone and has pre-programmed flight paths into the drone. So the amount of flying he does is actually pretty limited to takeoffs and landings. And one more quick video. This is footage from the project at Cedar Bluff. The boat that's moving in the lower corner is the one that the gentlemen are on that are doing the study. And this is just a short clip to show you how they drive the boat as well as fly the drone. Another part of research that we have going on is a literature review and survey of the types of use of drones on public lands by government as well as other entities. We've partnered with DJ Case and Associates, who is a human dimensions firm who conducts research for agencies such as us. And hopefully this report will be available by the end of the year. We requested that they do a literature review, so to really see what's going on in other states and other applications. Pretty much we just want to know what other people are doing with drones, not just us. And some of that is more so word of mouth, so we requested specifically a report, a scientific literature review from this agency. We are also having them conduct a human dimensions survey of some of our users, people who might be impacted by drone use on our public lands. So that includes just the general Kansas public as well as hunters and anglers. We want to know about their use of drones and their acceptance and their attitudes and opinions about drone use on KDWPT managed lands. We're really trying to be proactive and kind of head off maybe any of these potentials for conflict by really understanding our constituent base. Hopefully we'll have some of that available by the end of the year, and maybe we can come back and present that to you as well. Okay, Rich is going to take over now.
So just to give a summary of where we're at right now, we are well into the process of reviewing the types of equipment we'd like to utilize in the process to purchase that equipment, and also considerations for how we integrate this technology into our jobs when it's necessary. And a big part of that, the third point up here on the screen, is our guidelines, risk assessment that's part of our standard operating procedures, and make sure we have some guidance in place to minimize any risk associated with the activity, but at the same time provide for the opportunities and the situations where it is necessary or useful that we can rely on those things. So we're pretty close to moving forward with a little more widespread use of this technology at this point as we finish up on some of the last components here of departmental use. The other thing that we haven't covered yet in the presentation, of course, is public use, and that was the other goal that was initially mentioned here. And there are two main things here. First, talking about use in relation to wildlife in the species that we're responsible for managing. There is a federal regulation, the Airborne Hunting Act, that does prohibit the use of aircraft for hunting and harassment of wildlife. So that does tie into UAS as well. So there is some federal regulations, and the plan is that we're going to provide some guidance, some FAQ type documents on our website that can I provide some indications for the public what types of things are likely, that obviously prohibited, not recommended, those types of things. So we're going to provide some further guidance for the public as far as hunting and use associated with wildlife. And then the other part of that is on the lands that we own and manage, which is always a question that we hear quite a bit about. And right now we do have a regulation that prohibits the takeoff and landings of aircraft on our department-owned or managed lands other than in specified areas that we have. So we have, I think we call them RC locations on a number of our properties associated generally with state parks. And so there are some of those areas available now. And but outside of that, it is prohibited, and our interpretation is that UAS would also follow within that guideline as well. So it would be prohibited outside those. There are exemptions possible, and those will be authorized by the Secretary. There is also in the works a list of specific drone operating areas that are going to be considered in a number of state parks, so that if folks actually want to go out somewhere and actually want to run their drone and fly around, we can provide that opportunity to them. So there are going to be a number of state parks across the state where we provide that, and I suspect similar to what we see for RC aircraft that we have in place now. And finally, one of the reasons we're here talking to you today, and we're going to be at the next couple of commission meetings, is I think there's probably some necessity to clarify and make sure that the definition of aircraft in our regulation includes unmanned aerial systems as well. So there isn't any confusion whether if it's manned or unmanned and how regulations differ between that. So we're going to be going through that process with Chris's help over the next course of commission meetings to get some of those language clarified in there so everyone knows we're on the same page for that. As far as next steps as we're moving forward here, the task force is something we will continue to meet regularly. I think at least every quarter or so is the plan, even after we get the program up and running, and then provide updates to the commission and others as necessary on the status on what the use looks like, what we're seeing, and the success of the program, those types of things. So. And with that, I don't know, Chris, was there anything that you wanted to add to the presentation that we didn't cover?
Just something that I thought of on the statewide level. The state was selected, it had submitted projects to the White House. There were 150 projects. I think it came out in the last statewide task force of which we're part of. And so Kansas was selected, and one of the things was selected was search and rescue, so I think there'll be some emphasis. We're working with KDOT currently on that issue.
I think there were 10 overall programs selected and maybe only 2 states. I think Kansas was maybe one of 2 state programs, so it's quite a accomplishment. So with that, I think that's all we have to present, and I'm sure we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.